ลำดับต่อไปนะคะจะเป็นการเข้าสู่ช่วงของ Keynote Speaker ช่วงที่1นะคะขอเรียนเชิญมิสเตอร์ V Subramanian นะคะผู้ก่อตั้ง SS Resource Media and SS Rice News นะคะมีประสบการณ์กว่า30 ปีในอุตสาหกรรมข้าวแล้วก็การจัดการประชุมระดับโลกนะคะเคยดำรงตำแหน่งเป็นรองประธาน The Rice Traders และบรรณาธิการของ Rice Today ค่ะ Next, I would like to invite Mr. V. Subramanian on the stage. He's a co-founder of SS Resource Media and leading contributor of SS Rice News with over 30 years of experiences in global rice and commodity markets. He has organized major international conferences and served as a vice president of the Rice Trader for 15 years. His expertise span from market intelligence, price trend, and shipping, marketing, and many more. He has been leading the voice of the rice industry worldwide. So please give a round of applause for Mr. Subramanian, who will give a speech on Thailand rice in the global markets, strategy for success.
Good morning, everybody. My friends call me Subra, so you don't need to use my full name. But basically, where SS Rice News really started 2 years ago, but I've been working in the rice sector for, I just counted, 29 years. So we've been doing, and I've met many of you over those 29 years, and so it's nice to see some good old friends and new ones here. I was very impressed when I came to Thailand. Just yesterday I arrived, and I immediately came to the exhibition hall to have a look around. And I have to tell you, from my heart, rice and coffee, they're very close to me. For a long time, while I was starting my career in rice, I was also used to be the vice chairman of the Singapore Coffee Association a long time ago, so I've had a very good time exploring the halls here. So congratulations on a very successful event. So I wanted to say thank you to Thailand. You have provided not just SS Rice News, but for myself, a lot of friendships over the years and a lot of good relations which have allowed us to grow. So really, what I'm going to try and take you through is in my presentation is a picture of the global market, and finally towards the end we'll look at where Thailand sits within that and how we can take it forward. Really the first slide says it all. When I look at rice markets, we want to say it's simple to read, but more often than not it's a combination of policy or politics and the weather. And this, when we come here, I just finished writing my report yesterday and we submitted it out. One of the big things we're talking about are all the floods from Sumatra, southern Thailand, central Vietnam. These are real events. Sri Lanka, I have friends telling me, and these are going to have an effect on rice markets, whether you like it or not, whether we're oversupplied or not. So we're actually in the middle of some changes happening in the market. When you look at policy, if you look at India, the ban was politically motivated. It was a decision by the government to ban rice exports that allowed world rice prices to go up, and it also encouraged the rest of the world to produce more. And then when they reopened the market, we are sitting in a market where we have some very motivated producers, a lot of rice in the market, but meeting very harsh price conditions. A lot of markets, and just last week I was talking to a friend of mine in Brazil. The biggest complaint in South America is that they're expecting a big crop and the cost is higher than the price. So how do we navigate through this? I mean, I think the conference is timed perfectly to address very important issues and how you value the resource. I mean, it's very easy to say when the farmer does a good job, we punish him by giving him low price. So we have government element, we have new areas where we can create value, and we have to address the way we look at, we don't want to have a shortage for sure, because when people are not fed, it's disaster. So we're talking at a time where there is enough rice, but there are complexities ahead that I'm going to try and describe to you as we move forward. I think I missed it. Okay. So this is a price chart. Basically, I use white rice 5% and parboiled rice. And if you look at it, just to make it simple, this part of it here is all the effect of India's ban. All the prices went up and everyone was happy. I think It's fair to say last year a lot of people in Thailand were saying, and a lot of people in every country were saying the farmers are happy because good prices. There was good value for them. But then fast forward, India reopened since October 2024, and then in March they reopened broken rice exports again, and then you have this slide all the way down. I mean, I put 320 is the lowest price we saw in the last month, basically from Myanmar for white rice 5%. Today, if you look at it, Thailand prices are actually up. So I'm happy to say you're actually getting better price returns today. I'm also going to show you that this is just white rice and parboiled rice. It's one part of the rice market. You've got to look deeper. You've got to understand that in Thailand you have hom mali, you have fragrant rice, different new varieties coming into the marketplace, and each of these will have an influence in the market. So this is a supply chart, I want to call it. There are three triangles there you can see. The first one was when Thai old crop made its way into the market. It was an event that saw quite a lot of cheap rice enter the market, especially to Africa and several other markets. A second one was when China started releasing its old crop from 2017 onwards for a few years. If you look at the same situation today, China is exporting far less. They focus more on their domestic needs. The final one, I call it India free rice. The main reason why I call it free rice, they weren't selling it for free. The government gave 55 million tons of rice to the market free of charge during COVID. And this rice, when it comes into the market, will have the natural effect of pressuring prices. So prices became very cheap. Thailand and Vietnam and Myanmar were having drought during that same time, so you didn't have the rice to export. So your prices were $400, $420, and the Indian price was $330, $350, because they had this cheap rice in their domestic market to prevent starvation during COVID. But at the same time, it turned out to be a benefit because Africa also got a lot of very cheap rice from India. That was the year when India suddenly exported 22 million tons of rice, up from about 13 million tons that year before. So that was the effect of one action, a releasing of a large quantity of rice into the market and the market response. Today, unfortunately, we are sitting in a situation where we're looking a little bit behind and looking at different. So I'm going to try and take you through a few charts here. They're all presented at the Pattaya conference that we organized a few weeks ago. So no big thing. So this is the same chart over a shorter period since 2024. You can see, I wanted to show the declining. This is where we are today. Although Thai prices have gone up in the last 3 weeks, maybe about $20, $25 per ton, hom mali even more. Hom mali came up from $900 to, I think yesterday when I checked, was $1,010 as a reference price that we look at. Okay, this is an important chart that I wanted to show you. This is the world rice trade that we look at, and we broke it down by different types of rice. So we broke it down by white rice that doesn't include japonica rice, glutinous rice, parboiled rice, basmati rice, fragrant rice meaning jasmine rice, fragrant brokens, and white brokens. So when I look at a market, each of these represent smaller markets within. And if you really look, I'm going to try and see if this is why I made this chart last night to show you that the problem between 2024 and 2025 is really in this white rice. If I show this to you, and if I show you how much less Indonesia buys in 2025 compared to 2024, you can almost say that almost all of this is because of Indonesia. You know, the white rice demand is where the problem or the problem child is. You know, if you look at all the other segments, except glutinous rice, which is very China dependent, but quite flat, most of the other segments actually saw more rice because when India came back into the market, there was more rice moving. So despite more rice being made available and movements showing, we are in a difficult position because what are people telling me? When they buy the rice in January last year, the price was maybe $400. By the time the rice arrives in March, the price is $360. By the time it arrives in May, June, the price is 350. By the time it came to that 320 point, every time you ship the rice, it reached the market and then you have to talk to your buyer. There's a lot of renegotiation. So this is also one of the advantages that Thailand has. I'm going to explain that to you later, but I wanted to show you that the rice industry is not in that bad a shape. We just read the news and say, oh, it's so depressing that prices are coming down. Yes, prices are coming down, but if you look at the prices within all the different segments, which I'm going to try and show you, you will see that the price decline was sharpest in white rice and parboiled rice, where India is most present. The price weakness is very clear in broken rice. When India came back, there was a lot of broken rice available to the market. At the same time, because corn prices are so cheap, feed demand stopped buying rice. So the feed people did not buy rice as much when corn is available. So these are the kind of choices that people have to make in the market. So 2025 really for me is about India. India's coming back, India's impact. India, whatever India did, affects everybody. Yesterday when I write my report, everyone's telling me about OMSS, Open Market Supply from India. This is where the whole of Indian market is expecting the Indian government to sell some discounted stocks so that they can have more rice, be more competitive in the world markets, but India haven't done anything. So far, the harvest is halfway through. The harvest is showing up more now. From now until about January, February, you'll see a lot of rice harvested and enter the market in India. You know, very similar to Thailand, where you see October, November, where most of your rice harvest takes place, your main crop. So India's in progress right now, and so we're waiting for a political decision that's going to open up. Otherwise, the Indian market is around 350 today, and what happened is a few people in Pattaya, they made deals to sell white rice 5% for 340. Today, the ship arrived and they can't find the rice to match that. So there's a lot of short cover. It's a very similar story to why Thai prices rose from $330 to almost $400 today. In the last 2 or 3 weeks, that's all. In 3 weeks, the price moved up very fast. Okay, just a second. So I wanted to look at, we're going to talk about Trump and tariffs later on. To me, personally, as far as Thailand is concerned, I don't think the Hom Mali market is affected, almost none. If anything, it's looking quite healthy at the moment. The low of your main crop harvest was around $900. Yesterday's price, 1,110 is what I got. It's a very healthy number. Price-wise, this is not an area where you're concerned. If anything, I would start looking at the consumer. Now, the US consumer that's buying your Thai Hom Mali rice, they are quite set in their demand. They're buying a particular quality that Thailand is providing. And quite honestly, if you look at the purchasing power aspect of it, how much of their monthly budget goes into rice is still negligible, even after the tariffs. So I'm not expecting a major shift. Even if Vietnam rice is cheaper, they face a similar tariff. The consumer demand is steady because of Thailand's own branding and quality and the efforts that you make in marketing your rice to these. So these are how you retain your value. Okay, coming back, the high stocks, I don't need to tell you. Everyone was ready to grow rice when the price is good. And then when India came back, the situation changed. So the current challenge that we're facing is lower prices are testing us. What is your farmer going to do in the next crop? Main crop is already over. It was a good one. As far as Thailand is concerned, I look at two things, water and what the mood is amongst the farmers. And at the moment, water is good, farmer mood not so good. So what's happening? People will stop using inputs. They reduce their care for the farms. Because the price is coming down, it doesn't make sense for them to invest in the ground. In fact, we even heard of some investor type businesses that go into rice farming because it's profitable, and when it's not profitable now. So what we are expecting for Thailand ahead is a potential for yield reductions. Thailand is adjusting to the global market. Maybe these high prices will reflect back. My problem with the high prices is that you haven't really sold new contracts at the high prices. Most of this high price is affecting old contracts that are being shipped. So we're going to have to wait and see how that shapes up. Right? So that's the main thing. So demand, as a buyer, I don't need to buy and stock rice. I know that next 3 months, there's going to be stocks of rice available for most origins. So this became a bit of a vicious cycle. And what you have is a cycle where when your supply arrives to the market, the stocking is not taking place. More buyers are doing just in time, more movement through containers and things like that. So there's a lot of delays. So the consumption is not being reduced, but the timing of the movement is changing. So a lot of the seasonal movements we used to see is changed to all year. So that's something that we're looking at. So the big problem in Africa today, costly inventory. I know some people, even today, they have $500 rice in their warehouse that they can't sell. This is from 8-9 months ago. They need to liquidate, collect the cash before they can make a new order. So this is changing the type of business decisions that people have to make. So again, the Asian market. Okay, India's got a massive harvest. I always say it's about 145 to 150. If you look at the USDA data, they're going to tell you it's 150. I look at 145 to 150, explain to you why. The main reason why India jumped from 138 million tons to 150 million tons is because they introduced a third crop, Zaid crop, which is a summer crop. So you have the Kharif crop, the Rabi crop, and now you have the Zaid crop. The Zaid crop is mainly planted in irrigated lands, but non-traditional rice areas. So my question is, what are the yields going to be like? These are sort of experiments in progress. So you might have to wait and see how these plantings realize, and whether India ends up with 150, which is the terrible scenario for the world market, or 145 million tons, which is a little less terrible. These are something that's ongoing. What we know, the current crop, 124 million tons, is a good one. When we look at Pakistan, they have a very strong crop, but you know what happened this year? Pakistan reduced their support in corn and wheat production in their own country. So what happened is that the domestic feed people started to buy Pakistan rice. They don't even bother whether it's mill rice or not. They buy unprocessed rice. I talked to a friend 2 days ago. Already they bought 1.3 million ton worth of paddy. So maybe about 800,000 times mill rice basis is already bought. But he told me, bro, don't worry. The feed guys are not buying anymore. They already bought for 3 months. The corn crop is coming in January. So when the corn crop comes, they will try to utilize the corn because it's cheaper than rice. So the demand part of it, the domestic demand part of it is changing right now. So these things that we monitor on a day-to-day basis to try and give you an idea of how things shape every week. That's why we have a weekly report. Now Vietnam, we consider that a star market in 2025. And why is that? I'm going to say it's fragrant rice. Not even because the Philippines had 2 moments where the Philippine demand dropped in May, June, and then right now they have a ban up to the end of the year. But basically the Philippines, they bought less. They were hoping the prices will come down. But you know what happened? The Africa market bought. Africa market bought almost double what they bought in 2024, and most of it was DTA, fragrant rice from Vietnam, which is going to markets like Ivory Coast, Ghana, Gabon, Mozambique. These are the big markets. There's a lot of smaller shipments, but when I say big markets, they're probably doing about hundreds of thousands of tons out of Ivory Coast and Ghana, which are very big for Vietnam. Gabon, Mozambique, they're coming up maybe 30,000 tons per year, which is the reference that we're looking at. So this actually helped Vietnam sell more fragrant rice and less white rice. The white rice, the same problem, no Indonesia. So the white rice problem, but the beauty of Vietnam's farming community was they're much more agile. They actually planted less white rice and they planted more OM8 or DT8 or 5451. Plus, Vietnam has the small advantage that they have a porous border with Cambodia. So a lot of times, if you're wondering why Vietnam is shipping so much in January or February, it's not because their harvest is there, it's because of the border trade from Cambodia. Cambodia harvest is now same as Thailand, and it's moving through the border. I can tell you it's easier for the Cambodian to move it to the border because the price of electricity in Vietnam is 3 times cheaper. That means when they mill the rice in Vietnam, it makes a lot more sense, and they have access to the export ports. So although the rice is sold as Vietnamese rice, you might say it was born in Cambodia. So that's something that makes Vietnam quite interesting and dynamic in the way it positions itself in the rice market. Now, Thailand has been a very competitive offer this year. Thailand's success this year, we see it in fragrant, Hom Mali, in fragrant broken is more happening now, and in parboiled rice. But the problem for Thailand is like parboiled rice goes mainly to South Africa, Yemen. These are your main markets. And this year you have a little bit more sales to Benin and to Nigeria, where you were selling some brown parboiled rice, which was allowed some duty exemptions and stuff. So there was about 55,000 tons of brown parboiled rice that was shipped to Nigeria directly. So parboiled rice was a beneficiary. I'll show you the breakdown for how Thailand did. I'm sure all of you already know because TREA presented the exact same numbers a couple of weeks ago. So just looking at the Thai situation is that you have a larger white rice segment, and really you have to look for new buyers. So your white rice is going mainly to Iraq, and that's really 2 companies buying for Iraq markets. It's going to Japan, and then you have a broader commercial sale which is more dependent on your ability to compete for price. So that's the reason why the Thai prices literally you can say collapsed this year compared to a very healthy last year to this year. There was a very quick shift. And I like to see Thailand as a little bit more structured. You're more fixed in terms of what you produce. Unlike Vietnam, you can't just quickly plant more DTA or something like that. And maybe that's something that the Thai government and the industry has to consider, how Thailand responds to your buyers and how you can serve them better, because otherwise the Thai exporters have an impeccable reputation for delivering, for very professional service, where you don't have too many problems in terms of negotiations and renegotiations. So there's a lot of good and bad about this whole thing, but it's about what you grow and how it is received in the market. Myanmar, they look ready, but Myanmar at the moment, I can tell you, they're selling mainly to China through the border, and they're selling to Africa because they are so cheap. The prices went up last week by $10 just because of this, and of course Myanmar is more complicated. They have power problem, electricity problem, and currency. Currency depends very much on the official rate and the bank rate and how the exporter can play between these two. So this will decide their competitiveness. At the moment, the currency makes it difficult for them to sell cheap. So that's the current situation in Myanmar. But Myanmar is always interesting because they are, to us, the largest supplier to China. And of course, in the newspapers, you have read that Thailand is hoping for this 500,000 ton deal with China. What I can understand is like with the higher prices right now, I think the negotiation became a little bit more difficult. So there's going to be more challenges in the boardroom that you're going to have to look at. So Cambodia, again, is a very flexible market. If you look at their official export, it's not a big deal. It's about 1 million tons. But if you look at the unofficial export, what goes through the border, Cambodia rice can reach many places just from there. And a lot of times, it's not because it just makes sense for them to move the rice from the Mekong Delta to Vietnam rather than to bring it to Battambang or to Sihanoukville to export, because they don't have the river transportation to help move the rice in an economic fashion. They use road. And when you talk about road, there's a lot of administrative costs that are attached to it. So getting the rice from near the Vietnam border to the official ports that are exporting rice from Cambodia is a little bit more of a challenge and costs more. So really, that's where we're looking at in terms of Asian market. This is USDA. I love this chart simply because it tells you in a nutshell. If you see this one, 2024, 25, that's the current year. Okay, that's where supply and demand. That's why the prices that we talk about, falling prices, weakness, it's all because of this part here. The gap, the supply growth has been immense. But just remember, the world supply rose by 17 million tons between 24 and 25. 12 million tons of this growth was from India. And if you look at that 12 million tons, remember I said about 145 and 150? You can remove 5 million tons if they are 145. So that's what we are waiting in terms of perception. what's going to happen. But they're also saying that it's going to tighten ahead. That means, is this good news? Our market's going to be more stable next year, 2026. I'm not completely certain, because the same way the consumption growth that the USDA shows, and I'll show it to you in a minute, the consumption growth, most of it is coming from India. And I feel that that consumption growth, a lot of it has got to do with ethanol. And at the moment, I can tell you that the Indian government, as much as they want to sell 5.2 million tons of rice or broken rice for ethanol use, they only sold 1.2 or 1.3 million tons so far. So that means it goes back to pressure from the stocks that India holds. So this is the same numbers. That's how you get it. I just broke it down. This is USDA. It's not my numbers. This is from the USDA. Shows you the 17 million tons. India contributing 12 million tons. Then you have Brazil, 1 million ton. Indonesia, 1 million ton. Cambodia, 1 million ton. So you can see the Indonesia part of it, after the floods in Sumatra, you're not completely sure. So you have to keep adjusting these numbers to the realities. This is a guy who's an economist just like me, collecting information, and with every event you adjust your expectation. So that's basically it. Same thing for consumption. I told you, supposed to go by 7 million tons and 9 million tons or 10 million tons per year, but most of the growth, if you look at it, from India, 5 million of this is from India alone. And if you think about it, that 5 million tons is roughly the ethanol expectation. So that's really what they factored in. So now, as we move towards reality, we will adjust those numbers. And I feel that there are a couple of gaps that's still left in this market. Okay, trade. World trade has not changed dramatically. The point here is like, it improved by 1 million ton. When the market has got 17 million tons more stocks, your world trade improved by 1 million tons. So the emphasis goes back to domestic market. So this is a pressure point. You can't really deny. If world trade went up by 3 or 4 million tons, then I'm trying to understand. I spoke to some friends. They said that, can you convince some of these markets that they have to eat one more plate of rice every day? Then you might have another problem in terms of health problems. You know, as a diabetic, I can say the same thing. So same thing in exports. The movement is relative, and the movements here, if you look at the numbers, who gained the most is obviously India coming back to the market. So that shift of India coming back to the market is what we are all adjusting to in the trade. Again, this is the price, same market. What I try to do is I try to draw a line to say, historically, someone always asks me, hey, what do you think is the lowest the price can go? Okay, and this I presented something similar and said around 320. I'm so glad when Myanmar finally ate it, feel like I accomplished something in forward. I'm a really bad forecaster. Most of the time I get it wrong. In fact, a lot of people after coming back from Pattaya conference, they say, hey bro, how come Thai rice is at 400 now? You know, what happened to your theory? I said, I think you have to allow the supply and demand to play and dance their way through it. And I said, how many people are buying new contracts at 390 and 395 today? So the thing is that these are questions that need beg an answer. And the more buyers accept the higher prices, the situation will improve. My question is like, are buyers accepting the higher price? And at the moment, the answer is no. And we're still waiting for things to happen. So this is what I wanted to show you in terms of broken rice. Rice prices versus corn and wheat. Rice prices have been coming down, but so have corn and wheat. The net loser in this business is how broken rice sales are weaker today from most places. India used to sell nearly 2 million tons of brokens just to China at the peak when they had the free rice. It's not really free, but it was very cheap. And at that time, corn price was high because of the Ukraine invasion, and rice price was affordable. So this situation is a dynamic one. It'll keep moving. So this is what happened to the broken rice market. So the prices are coming down. And I have 2 red color markets. And I can tell you, a week ago, I was asking for quotes from Brazil. I can get broken rice from Brazil $255 to $260 a ton, which is cheaper than any of the offer from Asia. The only question is like, it's more expensive to ship from Brazil to other markets, but Senegal is buying more from Brazil. In fact, Senegal is a key market that we look at. Instead of being very India-centric, they're buying from all origins because the prices are very close. So this is a market characteristic. When India is cheap, they buy all India, 80% from India and 20% from the rest. Okay, so that's something that we're looking at. There you go, broken rice. This is China. The green color is China. The green color is China buying a lot very quickly when grain prices were high and rice price was cheap. That's the main driver. Today's market, China is not that big, although China is still a very important buyer of Thai broken rice. No, so the thing is that that's the main shift between COVID era when Indian cheap rice and now is a more flat. I want to say that most of the demand destruction is in the feed industry related demand. Fragrant rice prices. This is actually a happy story. At the time I made this chart was 1060. I told you already it's 1100 now. So it's a good story. And fragrant rice markets have been a positive. The African demand for Vietnam, even Thai fragrant rice exports are better this year than previous year. So your Hom Mali is still a gold mine for Thailand. Hom Mali is still the way to go. Are you going to add more layers to it? That's the big question you have ahead, because a lot of informal discussions suggest that there are other seeds being planted, and this is something that Thailand as a country needs to decide the way forward. I mean, how you want to create value, distinction, layers of premium and discount products. There's a lot of discussion that needed. It's not my job to say what's the best way forward, but you have a big competitor next door in Vietnam. They have ST25, which is expensive, close to Hom Mali prices. They have DT8, which is $480 per ton. They have 5451, which is a white rice, but that's selling to Philippines at $410, $420. So these are what they give you is like when you go to a restaurant, they give you a menu with all the different prices. You can have caviar, or you can just have nuts with your beer. So it depends on your budget. So they seem to have something for every consumer's budget. Again, fragrant broken rice. Thailand lost a bit of market share. In the past, Thailand always used to be premium to Vietnam. In today's market, both Thai and Vietnam fragrant rice is accepted more readily. Both are growing. Because the fragrant broken price is almost the same as white rice, the African buyers love it. They're buying more. In fact, right now is the season for Thai broken rice between now and about January, February. And then from February onwards, you'll start seeing the Vietnamese fragrant brokens showing in the market because they're harvesting and milling. So when a lot of time these supply interactions will drive what's available, prices, as well as the discount and premium between Thai and Vietnam. But it's a growing market. This is a success area. It's part of, if you're growing your fragrant rice book, the fragrant brokens also have a growing market, especially when the fragrant broken price is similar to white brokens. The consumer in Africa, especially Senegal, Ivory Coast, they love it. Mauritania and Gambia and all. So this is a success story, fragrant rice. The problem is most of the volume growth comes from Vietnam. Thailand also grew, but Thailand's growth is single digit. Whereas Vietnam, they really benefited a lot from those sales to Ivory Coast, Ghana, these two especially very big. They're also selling more to China these days. So this is something that you see as a growing market. Even Cambodia is continuing to grow, but this market shows you that in the world, that growing middle class, that growing affluence, it has a place for high-end rice, which is going in as specialty rice. So again, we're back to looking at white rice and parboiled rice. I've already showed you this before. So basically, I wanted to show you these lines basically tell you when India came back and how the market has responded ever since. Okay, parboiled rice. Again, I'm expecting some problems here because India sold a lot of parboiled rice and there's a lot of rice sitting in Africa. Okay, so India is still the major. Thailand has been a success because you sold more to South Africa, Yemen, Morocco, Tunisia. There's a few markets, Benin and Nigeria. So the thing is that Thailand's reputation in parboiled rice is high grade. Whenever you talk about Thai rice, it's 100S or 5%. You don't go to 15, 20. I called up my friends in India. They told me about parboiled rice that's called resort rice. You know how much that is? $280 FOB. Resort rice is basically the reject from the parboiled mill. And this is going to markets like Nigeria, Djibouti, Liberia. They take this result. Like when you look at the samples, I have the pictures. They look quite decent, but the color cannot guarantee anything. When you look at Thai rice, it looks perfect. So that's the difference. Thai rice is going towards a higher end consumer in South Africa, and you have a very strong share that's growing despite India being cheaper. Whereas India market is going to more markets across Africa. That's the main difference. So Bangladesh tender, just the last 2 years. This is a reflection of why I'm so worried about India. This is just last week, a few days ago. Okay, $351.49 CIFLO. So it's a CIF price. That means you're probably looking at about FOB price of about somewhere around 320 or slightly less. From India, most of the loading comes from Calcutta, but I'll tell you something funny. From this price onwards, India has sold 350,000 tons of rice to Bangladesh. Okay, the type of rice that normally moves is Swarna. Okay, and at the moment, the Indian Swarna market is collapsing because none of the exporters who won these orders are shipping yet. So they feel that there's no demand, so the price is just dropping as the supply build up. The Chinese told me that, hey, I can buy Swarna 10% for 335 CIF to South China port. So these are the situations that I keep looking at saying like, okay, while Thai prices are going up, Vietnam prices are going up, Myanmar prices are going up, what does this mean? You have to consider the realities that India is still somewhat of an influence in this market. And I'm not saying it's a doom and gloom scenario, but India is, you have to be concerned. Almost every exporter that I talk to, at the moment, they say, yeah, price is going up because India hasn't released anything about OMSS. No news. The Indian exporters say that I don't dare to buy my own crop because we are waiting for OMSS and see if that has an impact on the market. So if there's an OMSS discount, everyone's expecting prices to fall further, and it's going to bleed into the rest of the world market. So what it's created is, it created a lot of doubt to the buyer. Nobody wants to buy more than they absolutely need today. So this is why we look at India. The stocks, record stocks. Okay, when you think about it, this is something I put on ChatGPT, right? So it's not my numbers. This is the official numbers. All this is official. I asked ChatGPT, how much of covered warehouse space does India have? The answer was about 86 to 90 million tons. So when you have, went to the wrong place. When you have 75 million tons, or now 67 million tons, I updated it up to last week. So it's quite accurate. When you have 67 million tons and your total capacity is 86 million tons, and the government says, oh, the Food Corporation of India is going to buy 48 million tons, where is it going to go? So what I see is the Food Corporation of India is going to buy slowly. So this is what they buy in previous years, this is what they're buying now. The blue line is today. So at the moment, they're not exactly buying very quickly because they need to make sure they can store it. And they will still buy the 48 million tons, but some of the stocks need to be released into the public distribution system before they can fill it back up. So this is an ongoing situation. So these are numbers I was telling you about. It's not all ChatGPT, but what we have. It basically tells you that you have a lot of stock, not a lot of room to keep it. So something needs to go back into the market, and the only explanation I can see is that some amount of rice is going to go back into the market. You have to remember, India is unique. About 60 or 70% of the rice is given to public distribution systems, so either really cheap or free. So you go with your ration card. You're not going to the shop and buy the rice. There's a middle class, a very small group of people who go to the shop and buy the rice, and that tends to be biryani and higher quality rice. So same. I told you the 86 million tons capacity. This is from ChatGPT. So 86 million tons versus you have like 75 million tons. You have space for maybe 15 million tons. Where are you going to put the other 30 million tons that you promised to buy? So this is the balancing act that's happening within Indian policymakers as well. And my theory, even if OMSS does not happen, even if OMSS doesn't happen, India has to release the rice into some into the market, and this will depress the prices anyway. The question is, this will follow the harvest. Okay, I'm almost done. So basically, India remains the biggest supply side influence. All the other markets are receivers. You shape your decisions based on what happens in India. And the supply is still looking very good. The question is, these buyers are being reluctant while you have the rise. There's going to be price ups and downs according to the market situation. I think sometimes the Thai price rises were limited by how many people were caught unaware. They have all these contracts, and suddenly the miller said, okay, I'm going to hold on to the stock because I don't have another harvest in Thailand until March. So between now and March, I have maybe 2 million tons. I can distribute that over a period of time. So this is how the price discovery mechanism starts. So really, I'm just going to go back to the last part. All of this is the same. I expect Indonesia to be interesting from July onwards next year. Okay, so Bangladesh is rising, we know that. Malaysia and the Philippines are important, but Philippines depends on, they are in a ban right now. They're starting again in January. There's a lot of talk about how are they going to import the rice. They're talking about, I want to allocate so many percent to Cambodia. I want to allocate so much to Vietnam and so much to Thailand. And the importers are saying, let me decide what I want to buy. Why do you have to tell me I have to share this up and carve it out? So there's still ongoing discussions in Philippines market, which is very important. African demand is a big problem area because of the inventory. And of course, South America, I already told you. So really, I'm still looking at it as a market where most of the challenges are in white rice. Okay, now in terms of Thailand, I think these are parts. I promise you that I'll look at Thailand. Okay, this is the white rice part of it. You can take a look at it in your own time, but basically it shows you what I said in the beginning. The problem is white rice, where you haven't been exporting as much. All the rest of it is actually moving quite positively. The prices obviously are in a more supply-strong market. Okay, in terms of for Thailand, the tariffs are there. Okay, impact of tariffs. I think there's an opportunity in low emission rice, SRP. These are areas where you're not only engaging Thailand's bigger carbon efforts, but you're going to have to develop your own schemes to develop value, derive value, and be more sensitive to your land and other areas. So I've been told that I've run out of time, so you can take a look at this at your own time. But I've painted you a picture of the global market. I'll be happy to answer any questions directly later on in terms of what you're going to face. But Thailand's decision for me is in two parts. You have home mali, you have white rice and parboiled rice, which are related because the same production that goes into it. Those move on their own dynamics. But within home mali, are you going to invest more production into fragrant rice? That means your other areas are also going to grow fragrant rice. And what do you want to plant? Do you want to invest yourselves into soft cooking rice? These are the areas where you need to look at. And I think Thailand needs to extend your very strong export professionalism by giving them the products that can go to the right consumer. So this is really the dynamic that is in play. Thailand is very good in the sense that you're a very organized market. You're not fighting with each other so much, but you're able to work together and develop something for the greater good. So really, with that, I'm going to say thank you so much for your time. I'm sorry I took so much time. This is the most important chart for us. And I wish my partner, Sue, is here because she could have said everything in Thai for you.
Alright, thank you so much. ก็อาจจะขออนุญาตสรุปให้คร่าวๆค่ะอย่างที่เขาพยายามคุณสุราเนี่ยพยายามจะเล่าให้เราฟังถึงภาพของตลาดข้าวนะคะว่ากลไกราคาแล้วก็ตลาดข้าวเนี่ยจริงๆแล้วราคาข้าวก็ขึ้นอยู่กับ2เรื่องหลักๆก็คือเรื่องของสภาพภูมิอากาศแล้วก็เรื่องของpolitics ก็คือเรื่องของการเมืองซึ่งอย่างที่เขาเล่าตอนต้นว่าจะมีเรื่องของการที่บางประเทศเลือกที่จะไม่ส่งออกข้าวก็ทำให้กระทบกลไกราคาในภาพรวมทีนี้ถ้าเรามองในร่วมของประเทศไทยเนี่ยเราจะเห็นได้ว่าเราส่งออกข้าวเนี่ยมีทั้งข้าวขาวแล้วก็ข้าวหอมใช่ไหมคะเขาพยายามจะเล่าให้เราฟังว่าตลาดข้าวเนี่ยข้าวที่มีปัญหาแล้วก็โดนกลไกของการ ส่งออกเนี่ยทำให้มีปัญหาราคาตกต่ำก็คือข้าวขาวแต่ประเทศไทยเนี่ยมีจุดแข็งก็คือเรามีข้าวหอมมะลิที่ค่อนข้างมีแบรนดิ้งที่ดีในตลาดโลกนะคะแล้วก็มีกลไกที่ราคาค่อนข้างสม่ำเสมอนะคะแข่งขันได้แต่ในขณะเดียวกันเนี่ยเราก็นิ่งนอนใจไม่ได้เพราะว่าตลาดข้าวหอมเองเนี่ยก็เป็นตลาดที่มีความแข่งขันมากขึ้นเรื่อยๆอย่างประเทศเพื่อนบ้านเราก็คือประเทศเวียดนามเนี่ยก็สามารถทำข้าวหอมได้มากขึ้นแล้วก็ได้รับการตอบรับจากการตลาดที่ค่อนข้างดีซึ่งก็มีการเติบโตทางการตลาดที่ค่อนข้างมากเพราะฉะนั้นประเด็นที่สำคัญเนี่ยที่จะกลับมาคุยก็คือว่าแล้วในบริบทของประเทศไทยเองเนี่ยจะวางกลยุทธ์ในการปลูกข้าวแล้วก็ส่งออกข้าวอย่างใดที่จะยังรักษาความสามารถในการแข่งขันของตลาดข้าวไทยได้นะคะว่าถ้าเรามองตอนหลังเนี่ยคุณสุราเนี่ยก็พยายามจะให้เห็นว่าถ้าเราหันมาโฟกัสที่จุดแข็งของประเทศไทยก็คือการทำข้าวหอมมะลินะคะหรือว่ากลุ่มข้าวหอมแล้วเราจะมองดูว่าเราจะดูข้าวพื้นนุ่มหรือข้าวพื้นแข็งยังไงต่อนะคะก็อันนี้ก็จะเป็นภาพที่อยากให้ทุกท่านได้ลองกลับมาพิจารณานะคะในลำดับต่อไปนะคะอ๋อค่ะได้ค่ะก็จะมีอาจจะมีเวลาสักประมาณ 5-10 นาทีนะคะสำหรับคำถามนะคะถ้าท่านไหนอยากจะถามคำถามถามได้ทั้งภาษาไทยภาษาอังกฤษเรียนเชิญค่ะ
My dear friend Subra, nice to have you here. Would you comment a little bit on about the comparison of the exchange rate between the key exporting countries like Thailand, Vietnam, India, Myanmar, Cambodia? Second is about the freight rate, both bulk and also the container, because the freight rate, like India, when you export to Africa, India take a big advantage shipping to Africa, Bangladesh, or Sri Lanka, whereas Thailand may not be competing, in that area. So, can you comment on about the currency from the past 10 years? What about the currency play the big role? How do India, Vietnam, Myanmar, and all those key exporting countries? And what about Thailand? And what do you see about this impact and freight? Thank you.
Basically, in terms of currency, you're currently going through a phase where we look at the US dollar. Typically, if you look at India, Pakistan rupees, they have been structurally weak. That means that the weak rupee in India and Pakistan tend to support competitive pricing, whether it's in rice or in other goods. But it also signals some challenges within the economy because not everybody wants to have a consistent weakness. It reflects on other elements in your country. But in terms of rice, it's been supportive of competitiveness. In terms of Thailand, the issue has been a strong Thai baht. You're considered one of the better ASEAN tigers. So a lot of inflows of capital is seen for Thailand and it works against you. Hence, despite the strong Thai baht, rice has been competitive. So at the end of the day, what you need to do is you tend to allow the market to play. Overall speaking, Myanmar is more about whether they have availability of currency or the government rules because it's military rule in Myanmar. So a lot of times their situation varies from one person to another. So when you talk to Burmese exporters, I can speak to maybe 10 guys and 10 guys will give you a different scenario in terms of what is their current holding or position currency-wise, and that tends to reflect their ability to compete in exports. So this is a uniquely Myanmar situation because of their own situation, but they seem to be doing quite well, especially with the border trades to China, which is growing, and they have a stronger supply base this year. Cambodia, I don't know enough about it, but let me just look at the US dollar. I mean, in the last few weeks, most people are expecting interest rates to be cut, and with that, the dollar should be weaker, which means that most Asian currencies are stronger. But if you look at the currency between India and Pakistan, it's still weak. Few people in India want to keep their reserves in Indian rupee. Most of them, either they move the money elsewhere or something like that, or they do trades that allow dollar income to be generated. So this is something that we have to constantly see, but I'm overall expecting the dollar to be slightly weaker. What's happened is like in the last 3 years, it's more about volatility because of geopolitical events and taking this geopolitical events, if you take it to shipping, shipping has also been more volatile. When the tariffs came about, basically all the boxes were moved between China and the US. So there was no box availability elsewhere, so your freight rates started going up again. I remember Thai exporters telling me that the freight rate to US for Homali was going up again last year at the beginning of the tariff thing. But it's calming down right now. And again, the problem is geopolitical. So it's not an easy answer, but we have to keep an eye on it. The problem for break bulk, India has an advantage. The problem today is like a lot of ships arrive in Cotonou or Liberia or some other markets, and they end up taking a month to discharge. There's a lot of demurrage in the market. So there's a lot of costs that the industry is facing because of these issues. So this is something that we look at in terms of risk management, and you have to be very careful with your charter parties, how you manage your shipping, because it can become a very big cost if you don't manage it properly. So that's the most I can do at this point, because like to forecast is difficult. All right, thank you.
ค่ะก็เป็นคำถามที่ท้าทายนะคะเพราะจริงๆทางท่านผู้ทรงวุฒิของไทยก็ถามเกี่ยวกับเรื่องว่าปัญหาผลกระทบของอัตราแลกเปลี่ยนกับเรื่องของค่าขนส่งเนี่ยมันส่งผลกระทบยังไงกับตลาดไทยเทียบกับเพื่อนบ้านที่ส่งออกข้าวซึ่งเราก็จะเห็นได้ว่าจริงๆแล้วอย่างประเทศไทยเองเนี่ยเราก็มีประเด็นว่าเรามีเงินบาทที่แข็งขึ้นทำให้ส่งผลกระทบให้เราสูญเสียความสามารถในการแข่งขันเมื่อเทียบกับประเทศเพื่อนบ้านแต่ในขณะเดียวกันเนี่ยในเชิงภาพรวมของประเทศมันก็ส่งเป็นสัญญาณบอกว่าเรามีอีโคโนมิกที่ดีขึ้นมีคนต่างชาติลงทุนในประเทศไทยมากขึ้นทำให้เงินบาทแข็งขึ้นในขณะเดียวกันเนี่ยเรื่องของการขนส่งจะเห็นได้ว่าเรื่องของปัจจัยของโลจิสติกเนี่ยก็จะมีผลเรื่องของตอนที่ช่วงTrump tariff trade ขึ้นมาก็จะทำให้คนเนี่ยพยายามรีบส่งของก็จะทำให้เกิดการขาดตัวของคอนเทนเนอร์ก็ทำให้ค่าเฟรตเนี่ยสูงขึ้นเพราะฉะนั้นตรงนี้เนี่ยในมุมของเขาเนี่ยเขามองว่ามันไม่มี absolute answer แต่สิ่งที่เราต้องทำก็คือการบริหารจัดการความเสี่ยงที่เราจะต้องรู้ว่าเมื่ออัตราแลกเปลี่ยนไปเรื่องค่าขนส่งที่ตอนหลังๆเนี่ยก็มากระทบราคาค่อนข้างมากทำให้กำไรน้อยลงเนี่ยเราจะบริหารจัดการตรงนั้นยังไงนะคะก็เนื่องจากเวลามีจำกัดขออนุญาตลิมิตคำถามแค่1คำถามก่อนนะคะ